of like aha moment when I realized that in Cebu's home grounds, an employee of the conglomerate could basically spend their entire lives living, within the envelope of the company that they belong to. They could live in a home that was built by their company, essentially, and also sold by their real estate agency. They could commute on a train that was their company's train line. Work in an office downtown that was a Cebu office. Shop in the department store afterwards. Catch a baseball game, and then take their vacations at a hotel, all owned by the same group. Now, it's kind of a very unusual example, and it's not pervasive throughout Japan that this is the way things work. But it's really instructive to see how one corporate group came up with an idea for growth, an idea for building an economic system for their company or their companies that allowed them to develop and thrive and sort of build customers outside of their original employee base. So this is an example of a feedback loop, I guess. So let's go back to software. Oh, anyway, maybe I should ask some questions now, or let people ask questions if there's a need. Sure.
We were talking about obsessive loops a second ago. Do you ever worry about generating addicts to your service?
So the question is whether there's a concern about generating addicts. And I think that maybe it has a lot to do with whether you consider yourself addict number one or not. I think if you can identify yourself with the community of power users in your service, you're basically sort of protecting your quote unquote addicted users against perhaps the negative effects of your service. So I think that there's a really personal way to look at or potentially positive way to look at addictive behaviors. I personally don't think I'd be standing here in front of you if I didn't have an addictive personality. It's been one of the things that's driven me forward in my life and has helped me focus on the things I cared about, and sometimes to my detriment, not focus on a lot of things that I could have focused on. But all of us sitting here maybe have taken advantage of an instinct to focus on things and work really hard at something. And if you sort of build that spirit into what you're developing, I think you're probably taking out most of the negative aspects that you could anticipate in addictive behavior. And I think that one of the good things about engineers who build websites is that they do tend to start from a position of, this is something I want, this is something I need. And so they're likely to look at the positive aspects of that want and that need. So any other questions? So in looking at software again, I think the first thing to remember is that the web is designed for information dissemination, and it seeks, in some sense, if it had a life of its own, to spread information as widely as possible. And so you want to build your software with the understanding that you're in a medium that likes to do that. And then the behavioral model that I introduced really briefly of sort of bringing users who are interested in what you have to offer to your site, and then getting them interested in visiting your site over and over again defines how you're going to develop your features. And one of the tough lessons learned over the past decade for me was that getting people to sign on to your service and become a member to your service is one of the most delicate pieces of software that you can write. It's one of the ones that has the quickest positive or negative effect on whether people continue to use your site or not. And it was something that, coming into it, I thought was always an afterthought. If people want something, they'll not pay any attention to the process of signing themselves up into a service. But clearly, what seems to be the case in the real world is that people don't always know very much how much they want something. So you want to make it as painless as possible for them to get to the point where they can make a decision on whether they want something or not. So that initial user engagement is actually something that they experience through the sign-up process, and or through the initial visit to your site, whatever your site presents to users. And you really want to make that initial impression be one that's very powerful. Question?
Do you think that it's better for a site, for a particular service, to request that everybody sign up before they can use the service, or do you think it's better if it's more open and kind of there's more for the hardcore group?
Yeah, I think that you definitely want to have some kind of information that's out there for everybody. It's kind of like marketing. It lets people know, this is what we offer, and there's more good stuff inside. So I definitely feel like you can offer additional features to people who sign up, and then you can offer even further features to people who are willing to pay a subscription fee, for instance, or download a pro version or something like that. But like I said, because the web is an information dissemination tool, anything that you put out there and make public is another form of marketing for your site. It lets anyone who cares to know what you guys are about, what the service is that you have, and why you may be unique. So very definitely, open up as much content as you can afford to open up at some level. And then your feature set, the design of your feature set is one that should really sort of cater to that curve that I showed, that Ross Mayfield put up about user engagement. It's got to let people who have different levels of interest in your service be able to do the things they want to do with the content you have. So, if your site is about creating interesting content and displaying it, then the tools that you're going to have are going to be ones that allow, say, casual users to give a thumbs up or email it to a friend, and it's going to allow a power user to create new content that they post there, for instance. And if you can create a feature set which really takes sort of every level of user and gives them something to do on the site, you're actually also creating a sort of step ladder that allows people who might start out as just a visitor or a viewer, or someone who shares the information with friends, to be someone who climbs up the ladder and becomes someone who creates content, or either maintains a site of their own that's associated with it. So anything that lets people get more involved with what you're doing is very powerful. And then the final thing I think that's sort of not really discussed enough is how your release process, in fact, becomes the mechanism by which your website or your service occupies a niche in the web ecosystem. Because basically every new version that you're releasing out there is a new opportunity for people to engage with what you're doing, to tell other people about it, etc. So